Welcome to Calming Harp, the sounds of David's Psalms. I'm glad you've joined us for this brief moment we share together. I will be playing some of the music that has been brought out of the Psalms. My name is Rees. I play the harp, and over the last several years I've been bringing the sounds of David's Psalms into recordings. You can find a lot of my music on my website, www.calmingharp.com. I have CDs available and MP3s. And you can go to YouTube. If you go to YouTube and then type in Peregrinati, Peregrinnatti, you will find hours of beautiful harp music that you can just play in the background and be calmed with the music that David may have played for his sheep at one time or another. So as we share this half hour, join me and enjoy the sounds of David's harp. Well, good morning once again. It was last day in August, 31st, and so I just wanted to spend today talking about friendship. I was listening to a song the other day on the radio that said, "I am a friend of God," and it just got me thinking about what does that mean to be a friend of God. Friendship is important, and we're living in a time, I believe, here in our nation for sure, and I think it's happening other places around the world, where polarization is taking place to such an extent that friendships are being tested and sometimes trashed, simply because of political beliefs, political sides, whatever we talk about the left side and the right side and the conservative and the labor and all of these different labels that we use to describe a position that people take in the flow of the politics, especially. And I remember somebody said once that all politics is local. It filters its way on up through the national and global realms, but the reality is that it's all local, really. If it's not happening here or in my neighborhood, in my home, in my town, it's certainly not going to happen in Washington, D.C. or London or Sydney or wherever you want to say. And so I've been thinking that what did David have to say? And because I think the Psalms gives us clear direction so many times as we face the circumstances of our life. We can always turn to David and the other writers of the Psalms, and we can read that they were struggling with the same things. The names might change, but the situations don't. And that's where I wanted to focus today, is what does David say in the Psalms? It's interesting. We're going to go to Psalm 55, and one of the things that David starts out to the chief musician on neginot, which is stringed instruments, a maskil, which is a type of psalm, and it's specifically neginot maskil is referring to a type of poem that is set to the music of stringed instruments. And so this is what David is writing. And so he starts out, "Give ear to my prayer, O Yahweh, and hide not yourself from my supplication. Attend unto me and hear me. I mourn in my complaint, and I make a noise because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression." Shirley's going to read this psalm, and then we'll come back and I'll give some more comments. But listen to the words of this psalm. Once again, I talked about friendship, and this is one of the psalms where David speaks of he has a friend, and apparently that friend is turned against him, and he feels betrayed. And that immediately takes us to Yashua, who had his friends, and one of his closest friends, Judas, betrayed him as well. And so it causes me to look at my own life, look at myself. Am I a friend of Yeshua, a friend of my Father in heaven, or have I turned against him? And sometimes that turning against him is not necessarily a smack in the face. Sometimes it's just like Peter, just denying, or sometimes it's just being silent when we could speak up and say something. It's one of the things I've noticed a lot in my nation is what we call soft tyranny, in which people stop speaking up because they don't want to suffer from the repercussions that people will bring against them if they do speak up. And so the divide has become so great that people are becoming silent, and friends are turning against friends, family members are turning against family members. And I can remember when I was in college, one of my teachers, interestingly enough, there was a big debate going on, and people were turning kind of against each other in the debate, and it was turning kind of personally back then. And one day he got up in front of the class and he said, people, friends can disagree, and they should, because that's the height of learning, is we can bring different ideas to a situation. But they should never be disagreeable. And he said, I fear that we have allowed the disagreeable to come forth. And he said, I would counsel all of you to sit down and think about that, because it's okay to disagree, but do not become disagreeable. And I've taken that with me since then, because I've seen a lot of that. I have another friend. I was down in New Zealand. We were staying with a friend down there who had wanted us to come and do some programs down there. And she said, one morning we were talking at the breakfast table. She said, my father used to say that a bird must have a left wing and a right wing. If he's missing one of those wings, he can't fly straight. In fact, he probably won't fly at all, because he needs a left wing and he needs a right wing. And her father was making a point, because he was saying that in the middle of a big political debate. And you have the left side and you have the right side, and they each have their points. And it serves each side well if they are willing to listen to the points, because each one has points that are valid. In the scientific community, we have to have two different researchers taking different lines of hypotheses and doing experiments to try to prove their hypothesis, and coming together to synthesize, well, I saw this, but I saw this. And to come together and say, well, I can see that I'm not all right. I see you have a valid point there. But do you see my point? And then they come together and they say, so here's the middle. Here is bringing each of these sides together to where we find the next discovery. And if we can't do that, if we have to silence one side because they don't agree with us, then we're in trouble. Because now half the discussion is gone. And we have no chance of coming to the discovery. I remember Shirley was reading a book one time called Half the Sky, and it was written about how half of our civilization is upheld, at least half, and I would say more, is upheld by the strength of women and the knowledge of women and the input that women have into society. And if we relegate them to the back seat and say, you don't have anything to say in this discussion, then we're missing half the sky. And that's true of our political divide, that's true of scientific divide, that's true of everything. And I just feel it's time to speak up and say that we need to be less dismissive of the other side and more engaging, so that we can come to an understanding that's going to be significant. And I say this in light of friendship, especially because I'm seeing way too many friends being discarded along the way because I don't agree with you, so you're not my friend anymore. Well, I'm sorry. If I'm a conservative, I should have liberal friends. If I'm a liberal, I should have conservative friends. It's important that I hear their side of things, because I'm not going to be balanced if I don't have that input. And David here is decrying in this psalm that one of his friends has turned against him, a friend that he used to sit down and have sweet fellowship with. My friends who are listening today, I pray that you will be able to rethink this. That you can, if you have a friend that disagrees with you, don't discard them. I mean, at worst, you can say, you know what, I've heard what you have to say, but I just don't agree with you. But I'm not going to be disagreeable with you. You're still my friend. I still value your input. So don't stop. But on this one subject, I don't agree, but that's not going to keep me from being your friend. And David was decrying that as well. So listen to Shirley read Psalm 55, and then I'll come back for some more comments.
To the choir master with stringed instruments, a maskil of David. Give ear to my prayer, O Elohim, and hide not yourself from my plea for mercy. Attend to me and answer me. I am restless in my complaint, and I moan because of the noise of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. For they drop trouble upon me, and in anger they bear a grudge against me. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fear and trembling come upon me, and horror overwhelms me. And I say, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. Yes, I would wander far away. I would lodge in the wilderness, Selah. I would hurry to find a shelter from the raging wind and tempest. Destroy, O Yahweh, divide their tongues, for I see violence and strife in the city. Day and night they go around it on its walls, and iniquity and trouble are within it. Ruin is in its midst, oppression and fraud do not depart from its marketplace. For it is not an enemy who taunts me, then I could bear it. It is not an adversary who deals insolently with me, then I could hide from him. But it is you, a man, my equal, my companion, my familiar friend. We used to take sweet counsel together within God's house. We walked in the throng. Let death steal over them. Let them go down to Sheol alive. For evil is in their dwelling place and in their heart. But I call to Elohim, and Yahweh will save me. Evening and morning, and at noon, I utter my complaint and moan, and he hears my voice. He redeems my soul in safety from the battle that I wage, for many are arrayed against me. Elohim will give ear and humble them. He who is enthroned from of old, Selah. Because they do not change and do not fear Elohim. My companion stretched out his hand against his friends. He violated his covenant. His speech was smooth as butter, yet war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. Cast your burden on Yahweh, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. But you, O Elohim, will cast them down into the pit of destruction. Men of blood and treachery shall not live out half their days, but I will trust in you.
John 15, starting with verses 15 and 16 basically, and 17. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you, so that you love one another. Yeshua said, I don't call you servant anymore. I call you my friend. So my question for myself especially, I'm sharing with you my thoughts about how do I approach all this. Am I a good friend of Yeshua? Am I a good friend of my Heavenly Father? He said he's called me a friend. Do I end up like David with does my Heavenly Father, or does Yeshua end up with a friend who he had sweet fellowship with, but then he turned on him? Is that the kind of friend I've become to my Heavenly Father, to Yeshua? But I don't want to be that kind of friend. And it's interesting, even Peter, he denied Yeshua 3 times, but then Yeshua gave him a chance to reestablish his friendship. And I don't think Peter ever had that trouble again, because every time he was tempted to deny Yeshua, he remembered what it felt like. And so that's really our question for from each one of ourselves as we face ourselves in the mirror. We need to ask that question frequently. Am I a good friend of Yeshua? Am I a good friend of my Heavenly Father? He said that I'm not his servant anymore. A servant just does what his master says and doesn't even think about why he's doing it. But Yeshua said, I've now called you friend. And he also said, I chose you. You didn't choose me, I chose you. And that's an honor. So that's my point this week, is friendship. In the midst of the turmoil that we are all experiencing on the news in the world, not just here in the United States, but other nations as well, we see things in great chaos and turmoil, and we're tempted to take sides and tribalize to this is my tribe, this is the way we think, and since you're in that tribe, I'm going to, somewhere along the way, it can get so bad that we will even take up arms against the other tribe. And that's exactly what the enemy wants. The enemy seeks to kill, rob, and destroy. And he wants us at each other's throats. He wants us to throw away our friendships and not listen to each other, and to become so fixed in our position that we won't entertain any other way. I'm not saying we don't make a stand on our positions. Somebody once said, we can be so open-minded that our brains fall out. So I'm not suggesting that we just be nice and not have any position that we stand on. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is, remember that when you're in a discussion with somebody that has an opposite opinion or position, it's still a person there. And most likely it's somebody who has been your friend. And don't throw that away. Have a discussion, make your points, maybe even disagree, but don't be disagreeable. And that brings us to that word shalom. We say it so frequently and so often. Peace, brother. No, shalom. Shalom is, may everything that you need be supplied to you by our Heavenly Father, that we both serve, that we both are friends with. And in that friendship, may we each have the fulfillment of what we need. That is what our Heavenly Father desires for each one of us. At the end of the day, Father, could you help me see this person through your eyes? Would you let me see why they're thinking what they're thinking? And let me understand who they really are based on what they've been through and their experiences in life. Father, let me see them through your eyes. If we can see each other through our Heavenly Father's eyes, you remember, each one of us is His favorite. He died for each one of us. And that is what we need to remember more than anything else. So as you go out into your week, I will say, Shalom. So I hope you've enjoyed our time together. Stay tuned, as I say. Little pun. I have many more songs to share with you. I have more to share about how this all comes together. And I pray that you will share and help people, especially those you see stressed, especially in these times that we're going through. Bring people to this calming and this peace and this rest that this beautiful music of the Psalms of David brings to each of our lives. Thank you for listening. Hope to see you next week. Many, many blessings to you all today.